What is up, everybody? I know you all have been wondering, how do I make graphs or charts in C Sharp? Well, today we have an answer. So, what we're going to be using is this system.windows.forms.datavisualization.charting namespace. So, this is critical. Um, what we need. So, the versions that are supported, the .NET Framework version supported is listed down here at the bottom of this documentation. And this is Microsoft.com documentation. So any of these versions for the .NET framework, you should be fine to follow along with me. I'm going to be using 4.7.2, but any of these versions should work. So we want to fire up Visual Studio 2019. I'll say create a new project. And we will be using Windows Forms app on the .NET framework. So this is critical. You remember how that namespace was system.windows.forms whatever. So that means we got to be using this Windows Forms app. All right, cool. So next, and I will be naming mine chart underscore graph underscore gen. And the location for me is okay. If you need to change it, those three buttons right there gives you the browser. And 4.7.2 for the .NET framework. So go ahead and press create. Alright, so this brings up our Windows Forms app. So you'll be taken probably to the designer here. We'll come back to that in a second as to what we're going to use this for. But the program.cs, that's what we want to look at. So this is the C# code that runs our program. You'll see three initial lines here. This kind of sets up your app, gets it to start running. So one thing to notice though is this is a static class program. So that means every class inside of this class, or I mean, my bad, every function, every member function of this class is also static. It has to be. So what I'm going to do is make a non-static class. It's not totally necessary to do this, but I just think it would be better in the long run. So I'm going to say class charting, just like that. And then now we're just going to put in one member function, create line chart. Okay. And then to access that member function, we're going to make a charting object. Oops, I'm going to make this a capital C here. Make that a capital C, and then I can name this chart equals new charting. Super simple. And then to call that function. Alright. So it would be great if we were done right now, wouldn't it be? Like this just does everything we need. But no, we need to specify what we're doing with our chart. So the first thing that we're gonna specify is the image path. So where this whatever we make, where do you want to save it? So I usually just do this for things like this. I do copy full path of the program.cs file, and then if you just put at and then quotes and then control V, paste that on in there. So right now, and then a semicolon at the end. But right now, this would overwrite whatever we output would overwrite the program.cs. We probably don't want to do that. So we're going to change this to chart underscore graph underscore gen dot png. So we're going to be producing a ping file. More on that to come. So next we're going to create so now we need to talk about our namespace. So right now we have windows.forms, but we also definitely want our windows dot forms dot data visualization, right? So this problem stumped me for a while. I did not know how to get the data visualization aspect of the windows.forms namespace. So what I figured out, found to be the easiest solution. I'm sure there's other ways to add the reference or get the reference, I'm not sure. But what I found is if you just go to the designer and just type chart and drag that sucker on out here, you can put it in the middle, sure. Doesn't really matter. We're not going to use this. But, check this out. You go back over here and you say using system.windows.forms.dataviz. There it is. There it is. Just like that. It's magic. No, I think that the when you put the chart in, it automatically makes this reference to the data visualization charting, and now we can use it. Um, but that seemed to be the easiest way to get that namespace. And then we'll also be using another namespace, system.windows. Oops, system.drawing. We'll use that in the future. But with our namespaces in place, we can now say chart, call it chart, equals new chart. Alright, so that makes an instance of the chart class. And we can, so to think about charts, just in general, they consist of two major things. So we have the data of the chart, whatever comprises the data, and then the actual like chart itself, like how big is the chart, and like the intervals of the chart, the axes of the chart, what are the labels of the axes, what's the title, things like this that fall under the chart area. So there's two classes that you'll work with. One is called chart area. So make a chart area CA equals chart. So our chart object dot chart areas dot add, and we'll call this A1. So what we're putting in here is the name of the chart area. This essentially allows you to index it in the future with the name used right here. So we'll actually give a little bit of an example of how to do that here in the future. But for right now, we also need to do our data portion. So we're going to name our data S1, and it's a series, and chart dot series dot add, and then this is the same concept. We name it so we can index it in the future. So we'll just name it S1. And now we're going to specify what kind of chart it is. So we can say chart type equals, so series chart type dot, and here there's a big old list of different charts that you can make. There's candlestick, box plot, bubble, donut. I don't really know what a donut is, but you can make it. Funnel, kagi, polar, all sorts of graphs that you can make. I'm just going to stick to the basics here and make a line graph. So now we need to add some data to our series, something to plot. So I'm going to say S1 dot points dot add XY, and here you can do points, like let's say 0, 2, just two simple integer XY coordinates. But what's cool is you can also put strings in for this X. So like, for example, that could be handy if you're trying to do the date. You could put dates and then some associated value with that date to make a point. But for simplicity's sake, we'll say 0, 2, and then we'll make one other point. Obviously, you can add a lot of points. So dot add XY, oops, and we'll say 5, 10. Cool. Got our data down. So another kind of cool thing, just super easy, real quick, is you can change the background color of the image. So I love being able to just set this to transparent, and then you do the same thing with the chart area. This way, if you were generating, let's say you're generating 100 charts or something using a program that you wrote, you can just make all of those background colors transparent, And then you could easily insert them into like a PDF or a Word doc, and it would not look janky. You can just straight put it on, and whatever background color there was existing on something, it now assumes that background color. Super handy. So now we would need to make a title, right? So we want to do a title and some labels on the axes, just the basic stuff of presentability for a graph. So what we say is chart area dot axis x dot let's see here, title, big one. So we'll say make this x label, so that's going to be the text associated with that label, and then chart area dot axis y dot title equals y label. Cool. And then let's say we should set the title of the, actually no, we'll set the title of the whole graph here in a second. We'll talk about that in a second. So for right now, we're gonna align these labels. So the axis x dot title alignment equals string alignment dot center. So that just centers it. And then we'll do the same thing for the y. So I'm just gonna copy it. There we go. And then we also have to do the font. Because, I'm pretty sure the default font is like 10 point, probably Times New Roman or something. But if you wanted to change that, make it more presentable, make it fit some sort of theme of a document, you could say chart area dot axis x dot title font equals, and now you create your own font. So a new font, and we're going to make it Arial. There's all sorts of types of fonts, obviously, but I'm just going to go with Arial. Make it 15 point, and we're going to make this bold, because we are bold. All right, cool. And then I'm just going to do the same thing for the Y, just real simple. Cool. And now we are ready to talk about the title of the chart. So the way that the title is done is kind of different. You use the chart object, but it's dot titles because, and it's plural because this is a collection. So this is a title collection. So it's not just one title that you're limited to. So we actually add an element, and we'll say, you guessed it, title. So now we have one element in this chart.titles collection. So if we want to index this, make some modification, we'd say chart.titles.element at, and then index 0 because we just added this title. And now we have full access to its modifiers, like the font. So we can say font equals new font and do, let's say, Arial again. Real creative. Arial again, hit that with that 25 point font, and bold again. We only know bold. Alright, cool. So we also want to talk about the size of the chart. So we can just say literally chart.size, and now we're doing width, height. Yeah, width. So let's say the width is 1,000, height 800. Obviously, you can modify this. Oh, I'm sorry. I did not do that right. Chart.size equals new. There's a size class. So you want to use the size class. So new size class. My bad. New size and then height and width. So 1,000 by 800. So width, height. Obviously, you can change that to your pleasing. I just picked it. It looks pretty good on my monitor with 1,000, 800. But anyways, now that we have the size, one other thing that I like to do is change the size, like the thickness of the line that's used to chart. The original line, I think it comes with a border width of 1. So that's pretty thin. It's visible, but it's thin. So this comes back full circle here on, so we do chart.series, and now we index our series. So chart.series S1, because we added this series to our collection. and then we say dot border width. So that it's a little confusing because you might think we're talking about the whole chart, and you'd end up with some like thick borders around the chart. But remember, we're working with the data. So when you're working exclusively with the data and you say border width, that's like the line that's used to make the chart. That's border width of a series. So a little bit confusing, but when you think about it, it makes sense why it's border width there. So I'm going to set it to 5. And one other thing that I highly recommend, the chart itself, when it comes out, it's not super pretty. It's kind of granular and pixelated. So to combat this, we have this anti-aliasing uh, property, and we're going to set that to anti-aliasing styles.graphics. And then also for the text, like the titles and the labels, we can also help that out, make it look a little bit better by changing the text anti-aliasing quality, and we set that to text anti-aliasing quality dot high. And now we have everything configured for our chart. So let's go ahead and save this. I'm not even going to output it to the whatever the chart that I drew onto the design. I don't really care too much about showing it in the program. I'd rather just save it. So I'm going to say image path, comma, chart image format dot png dot ping. All right. So altogether, this should give us a chart underscore graph underscore gen dot png file when we run this. And this is about the time that I want to note. So this is going to just make us this one chart, right? Exactly as we specified it. But the way that you could practically use this, it would be worth a good bit, is if you could just quickly print, 100 charts. So the way that you could definitely do that is by adding parameters here. Maybe you pass in the points as like a collection or an array, and the background color can already be set, and you pass in like the titles for the labels. You can pass in all this data, or you could also say something like public string x label equals this, and then modify it as you're working, maybe in main or in some other, it could be a completely different file. But then that way you could just set all these parameters real quick and just fire off like 100 charts, 100 graphs as images, and then do whatever you want with them. Add them to PDFs or docx, or there's so many things you can do with graph images. So with that being said, let's see if this works. Never even tried it. So fingers crossed here. You press that start button and you hope. You just hope that works. Okay, so this is what I'm expecting. I didn't do anything with the chart that I drew onto the designer. I don't even think it has a name, so it doesn't really matter. But what we do want to see is this chart graph gen dot ping at our specified file location. So we go to, just follow your URL, whatever, your identifier here, your directory. Follow that to here, and we have our chart underscore graph underscore gen dot png. So if we open this up, we should see a graph, with these 2 points and some labels, and there it is. So we have our X label, Y label, title, and plotting some points. So just real quick, you might notice there's some white space here. There is a way to combat this. It is pretty nice that like how it comes up with these bounds, just a little bit off from where the data ends. But if you really wanted to set the limits of the graph, I would say chart area dot, let's say, axis y, and we'll say dot maximum equals 10. So now if we run this. Oh, and one other thing too. So right now, when this program runs, it doesn't output that PNG file until you exit this program. It was a little interesting to me that that is how that works. But anyways, so if I open this right now, it's going to be the same thing. Yeah. It's going to be the same thing as before. But if I close this program, refresh my directory, and open this, there we go. There's the output we were looking for. So that sets the maximum of the y-axis to 10. So I mean, you can obviously do all four sides, make a box out of it, or just about anything you want, or just leave it default. But either way, you can quickly generate images or chart graphs with C# code. No problem. And you can even make them look pretty good, pretty presentable. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm really glad that if you followed along, made it to this point, and take it easy.